used to see a score 9-something or 10-something, and a big score. And now it's hard. It's really hard to create a 2-on-1s or 3-on-2 just because of the system they have, the neutral zone trap, and so there's a big difference compared today to then. As far as the system and as far as the technology. So it's like any sport, it does change, and I love watching the game today. I love seeing skills. I love seeing guys coming to, they go to training camp, though, really in shape. I mean, my early career, we went in training camp to get in shape. That was a little different. So it's different now. So, I mean, if you're not ready, the preseason game starts a couple days after your camp. So if you're not ready, you're going to be behind and you're not going to be able to keep up. So it's important to stay ready. So there's a difference. That's the difference probably today compared then.
I mentioned you were drafted by the Buffalo Sabres as the first overall pick in the 87 draft. With that, title goes expectations. What were the expectations of you when you joined Buffalo?
Great question. I mean, the expectation was, you got to perform. Obviously, there's pressure that comes with it. But not only that, I couldn't really speak a word in English, and I couldn't say hi, how you doing? That's how bad I was. So imagine being on the ice and your coaching staff are saying things for practicing, and you go behind the line, and hopefully when it gets to be your turn, you understand just by watching what's going on. So that was an adjustment for me, and I lived with a billet family for a year there. And Jacques Cloutier was a friend of mine. He was a goaltending there, and he was able to really help me on that regard as far as being the translator, and it really helped me on that. So it was an adjustment. And then the ice, there's a lot of pressure. You got to perform. But I love the game when you're on the ice, and all of a sudden you get in your own little bubble. You get in your own little zone. You've been doing this since you were young, so you got to do the best you can, and after that, whatever happened. But I was blessed to do something I love for many years, and looking back, I love the game. I still love the game today, but looking back, I'm proud of what I did during my career, and I loved it. So.
You bring up a very interesting point about the language. I had a friend of mine who is a Hall of Famer who came from the Dominican Republic, and he talked about how he came into Major League Baseball, knew no English at all, and he said, I learned it from watching cartoons on television. Now, everybody finds a way, Pierre, to learn the language, whatever country they happen to be in. Well, what little tricks did you put into effect to be able to learn to speak English?
That is funny. Yeah, it's funny. So, no, it wasn't cartoon, but I got to say, though, I mean, I live with a family. They only speak English. They actually did this on purpose for my first year and a half or so. And you're hungry, you're making fun, you're trying to communicate, you call your friends, and all of a sudden you're forced to do it. And that's the best situation to learn it, is you're in a place, in a scenario where you're inserted to have to speak it, and I didn't have choice, and that's how I learned it. But it doesn't take long, obviously. It took me probably a year or so to start understanding. All of a sudden you get more comfortable, and but it was definitely an adjustment. And but my main thing is to be in a place and live in with a billet family, that I was able to really communicate with them and try to. That's how I actually learned it, and it was probably the best thing for me.
Let me take you back to 1987 World Junior Ice Hockey Championships. You were a member of the Canadian team, and you were involved in that bench-clearing brawl between Canada, or at least the team was, and the Soviet Union. Now, I remember seeing that fight, watching the tape of it, but you didn't leave the bench, did you?
I did. I mean, you're rating the media right now. So I wasn't fighting.
No, that's what I meant.
I had a guy. Yeah. So I left the bench. But it's some of the guys. It was the big thing. Obviously, the light went off, thinking that it was going to slow down the fighting and it was going to control the fight. It got 10 times worse. And it was incredible. It was just the fighting and so it's one of those things that it started with the Russian. And we had a 5-on-5 on the ice, and all of a sudden a couple Russians stepped on the ice to really